everybody. So today I'm going to read the first chapter of Fervent Desolation. I'm choosing to read the prologue this time because I can't decide. There were so many first chapters for this book. 11, I believe. I just kept adding stuff on. At some point I felt like I was never going to get to the middle of the book because I kept thinking, oh wait, I can't go there yet. I have to do something else. So it was a little bit crazy, and so when I sat down, because usually I kind of choose between the prologue and first and second, I still couldn't choose. So I'm just going to do the prologue, which means it's going to be the bad guys, which that's okay. There's a reason I give them the prologue and the epilogue off and on, because they deserve a little sunshine too, right? I'm going to be purple classy. Do you see my... I'm going to be all cool and purple screen while I'm reading a little bit, maybe. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm kind of setting up in my office now, and so I don't know how this is going to go. I'm not used to... I need to find, like, a spot to do all my camera stuff. But anyway, me rambling is not why you're here. The chapter is. Here we go. Prologue, Fawn Restored. Philip shifted more of his weight off of his left leg, adjusted his shoulders into a squared position, and straightened his neck so it wouldn't rub against the ironed crease of his collar. The dark blue pinstripe suit with a tie of the softest white contrasted the breezy, bright clothing of the crowd before him. On days like this, when the sun burned the horizon as it rose over the calm sea water, and a pressing rush of wind tugged at his jacket and flipped his tie, he felt the tiniest of twinge of memories of hooves in the bottom of his legs. He stretched the toes of his magical Dane feet inside his stiff shoes and whispered the spell that drugged his body from remembering the radical changes of magical surgery that had taken him from fawn to man. He stood next to the only father he had known. Eminente was the man who had rescued him from certain death as a baby, raised him on this hidden paradise island, and embraced all that he was. They had had their struggles, as any family did, but no matter what happened between them, they came back together afterwards. They had both hurt each other deeply in the last several months, but it had only brought them closer. It wasn't easy for Eminente to balance being a father and a leader, and Philip understood better the struggle his father faced. This morning they stood shoulder to shoulder in front of the sea of faces, some of them still wet with tears from the cleansing power of Eminente's words as they had worked their way into each heart and mind that gathered before them. His speech moved like the waves of the sea that surrounded them, rising and falling, cleaning and clearing, gathering and spreading. With each hearty round of applause, Philip had allowed himself a celebratory smile. This morning was a surge of renewal. Their side had suffered much loss in order to deal critical blows to the other side. Many of them had lost friends and family. During the last week they had mourned and held funerals for the fallen. This morning they shifted gears. It was time to step forward and make room for the future. The strongholds could be rebuilt. New leadership could be cultivated. Life would go on. Defeat, as Eminente put it, was a temporary state of mind, and a strengthening one at that. As Eminente had spoken of their sorrows and losses, the sky had been dark and empty. When the sun began to rip open the sky with brightness, his speech had moved to the next steps of the plan. When finally the sky was warm and beautiful, and the beautiful world around them was bright and before them, I'm messing up already. I'm really sorry. He spoke of the life they had all craved, magic for everyone. We have their attention, Eminente yelled in a rare moment of loud passion. After we deal some critical blows, it will be time for us to back away from the aggressiveness of our previous attacks. Don't worry, we will be prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. But I spoke recently with one of our spies who told me that the Weavers' Council is weakening and that the Alliance is ready to take steps to end all the fighting. If they are ready for negotiation, then we will sit at the table with them and talk peace. If they are not, then we will wear them down until they are. The crowd cheered. Someday, my friends, our strongholds will be known as schools of magic, and they will be open for all. For the dwarf who wants to learn elven magic, he will learn. For the hobgoblin who wants to learn to fight like a dwarf, he will. For the Dane who wants to learn weaver magic, she will. And all of this is because of your hard work and dedication. The future of the magical world is being created here on the island. Philip stole a glance at Eminente's face in that moment of vision and hope. A single tear slipped down the man's cheek. He made no move to hide it or wipe it away. Likely no one else saw it. Even so, Philip thought the tear was more powerful than any of the magic they had captured in the orbs. Philip dropped his eyes back to the re-energized crowd that was dispersing as the hops snapped into place with breakfast in the large tents a short walk away. Eminente laid his hand on Philip's shoulder and squeezed gently. Philip wrapped his arm around to lay his hand on Eminente's shoulder. They stood, smiling and nodding, as the generals and arxes stepped down from the stage to join the others for food. Philip found strength in Eminente's touch. It was something new between them, a much-needed change and an increased bond. Now Philip knew without a doubt that Eminente could make it all right. After all, Philip had suffered a terrible personal blow recently. The enemy had murdered his love and his unborn child. Philip had nearly saved them, but his plans had been thwarted. Who had been at his side when he heard the news? Who had comforted him through the dark hours and days? Who had made sure he ate and slept and mourned? Who had reminded him that there was still life to be lived? Who had told him that though his heart would always love his first family, it could also make room for a second? Eminente. The man who had saved him as a child had also saved him as a man. When Philip had recovered from his days of depression, he had sought out his foster father in his cave by a hidden cove on the island where a supply of orbs was kept. It was a source of Eminente's magic and a reminder of what they fought for. The magical beings in the orbs reminded Philip of the cost of their plan and what they owed the magical community when they succeeded. It was a place of reflection and meditation, a solace on an island that was growing with more and more Magani by the day. He waited there on the beach until Eminente had returned from his time alone, and they walked patiently by the man's side over the white sands of the beach. "What is it, my son?" Eminente asked. "I have come to swear my allegiance to you." The word father was still hard for Philip to utter. "You already have, and you know I do not like unnecessary repetition," Eminente chided him. "I'm sorry." "I'm sorry, father." Eminente waved him closer. "Come here, my son. Have I not said that you are forgiven?" "Yes." Philip swallowed hard. "Father." Eminente patted his shoulder. "Then no more of this nonsense." "I will show you then," Philip had said. "I will be an arx again, or help you train them. I will lead battles, or spy, or I want you to marry." Philip's legs had shaken, but he recovered quickly from his lapse. "I will take care of everything, my son," Eminente said. "I need this marriage to work for our people. It is a stage prop. Behind bedroom doors it can be whatever you need it to be. I'm even having a separate suite made for her that will connect to yours." He placed a key in Philip's hand and patted him on the shoulder again. Philip remained silent. Of course Eminente would already know the girl and she would be prepared for him. But he didn't want another girl. His heart still beat for his Raven, and for the future with her he would never know. "I will bring you another broken bird, my son. This one will be moldable." "Yes, father," Philip smiled. Inside, he was ripping apart. He shoved those feelings down. His father, his friend, and his boss stood looking deep into his eyes. Philip took a steady breath and put his hand on Eminente's shoulder. For the good of us all, he managed the words confidently, and the smile that came after was steadier. Philip thought of her now as he followed Eminente in the waiting carriage. It was a mere matter of time before he would have another wounded wing to fix. He thought of her as the days went by and dreamed of her at night. They were strangers now, but it would be good to have a fresh start. This time he knew more of women. He would woo her and mold her at the same time, and this time the woman would fit into his family nicely instead of bucking it every step of the way. He knew that given time, their love could grow. They would be the figureheads of Eminente's plan, a power couple that would not only mend his wounded heart, but also unite the magical world. "Are you ready?" Eminente asked once the door closed. "It will take courage and sacrifice, but I know you have it in you." "I am ready." He felt that tingle inside, the one he felt around Eminente at times like this. History was about to be made, and he was going to be part of it. "Then it is time to claim what will be ours." Out the window, some of the crowd was already lined up to board the portal ship that rested on the beach, waiting for the first round of Magani to board. It was a magnificent speech. Philip turned away from the side of the ship to study his foster father's face. The man had not been sleeping as much lately, and he wouldn't divulge the later steps of his plans. Philip was worried about him, but he wasn't sure that he would be allowed to do what he would be allowed to do for him. Eminente was so particular about everything, and the repaired relationship was new. "Father, I worry about how hard you're pushing yourself," he said tentatively. I know you are my son, but the work I do is not about me. It's for all of us, and it's why I need you to be strong and ready to take my place if necessary. Philip frowned. No, don't. It's a possibility that you need to be aware of. But don't worry, it's not my intention to leave you. I want to be here when you have your first child and watch that child grow too. I want that too. Enough of this talk. There's something I need you to do for me. Anything. One of our Arxes could not make it. She never made it, and Philip couldn't see why they tolerated her, but he kept his lips pressed tightly together. I need you to travel to her stronghold and give her my orders personally. Of course. But there's something I need you to do first. Actually, I have a series of missions for you. Eminente patted Philip's left leg. Anything. It is important to me, Philip, that you follow my directions exactly. The missions must be done in the order I give them to you, and you must complete them in the time given. Even the ones that seem dull and worthless are vital. It is important that you do everything as I ask you. I will. I know you will. Eminente patted harder this time on Philip's leg. By the time you return, I will need to leave, and you will be in charge of the island until I return with your future bride. He pressed his hand into Philip's leg. Philip couldn't help the sweat that poured from his forehead or the tremors in his leg. He took a deep breath and looked directly into Eminente's eyes. We will be a happy family, son. Eminente lifted his hand and smiled. Are you happy now? I am. Philip returned the given smile. Good. The instructions for your missions are on your bed. You leave immediately. I had a portal made just for you. The carriage halted in front of the waiting group of staff. Goodbye, my son. Eminente reached over and hugged Philip. It was so unexpected that Philip scrambled to hug the man back. Goodbye, my father, Philip said, as Eminente slid out of the carriage to address those waiting for him. Philip smiled as he walked by the crowd, relishing the excited chatter that intensified with his father's presence. He wiped the sweat from his forehead right before he stepped into the entryway and nodded at the security guard who still wore the thick metal armband signifying his transition period. The band would be replaced with a lighter one at the celebration of his successful completion of his final trial. The bands were new, and most of the Meganian creatures who had been with Eminente for at least a year only wore them for a week to show the newer ones that they were faithful enough to undergo the new ritual. Eminente even wore one decorated with miniature orbs, each one with a different Megani in them. Philip forced his aching leg to walk properly until he was safely in his room. He collapsed into his bed next to the moonstone disc. He panted through the pain, which he knew would cease in about 10 minutes, as he shoved the disc into his choir. He read through the steps of each mission, and when the pain was gone, he stood and examined the briefcase on his desk. The briefcase was full of orbs and portals and clothes and food his father had prepared for him. He picked up one of the orbs and smiled at the elf trapped within. Where he had failed the first time, he would succeed. He dug deeper into the magical briefcase until he reached the bottom, where an armband similar to Eminente's lay. He knew then, with all certainty, that he was loved. He held up the armband to look in each orb. He had them all, even a fairy. A grin burned into his face. He lowered the band to his left. It automatically gripped his upper arm when it got close enough. As power surged through his body, he sat down on the edge of the bed and let the magic weave through his body. He held up one shaky arm and marveled at the gold magic that revolved around every inch of him. He felt the flush rising up his neck into his cheeks, and then he bent over to be sick on the floor. Philip didn't know how much time had passed while he was unconscious. He only knew that he felt good, better than he ever had. Somewhere down the hallway, the floor sweeper hummed as it made sure that Eminente didn't see a speck of dirt anywhere. He turned to look outside the window and saw that the sun was nearly overhead. At first he chided himself for being weak enough to faint, but then he realized that it was all according to Eminente's plan. He would have certainly known what changes the magic would bring, and so now was the proper time for him to leave. He shoved a few other items into his briefcase, tossed the portal down to the tiled floor, and jumped into it with a bounce that hadn't been in his step for many years. He didn't know what the other missions would bring, but he knew that the first ones would offer him redemption. The portal twisted and pulled. When he opened his eyes to the place he remembered, his heart beat happily in his chest. Power radiated out of his body. With a wave of his hand, the tree in front of him exploded. He grinned. This would be his time. He would be the man his foster father had built him to be. And that is it. While I was reading that, it kind of reminded me, my husband likes to listen to audiobooks a lot. And the rest of us are kind of following suit a little bit. it's nice for me to save my voice a little bit with the kids since I homeschool them. And sometimes it's just nice for me to have something going on while I'm cleaning, because it just makes it more fun. But anyway, he was telling me that he was listening to a book online through YouTube, and that he was struggling with it because the person was making a lot of mistakes. So at the back of my mind, when I'm reading this, every time I make a mistake, I'm like, someone like my husband is dying over there. And but I don't know. I've only done this a few times. And actually, I'm about to put Phoenix up on YouTube. I'm going to do the entire book. Hopefully, by the time I get to the entire book, I will be better about this reading aloud online. Because I don't have a choice right now. Someday, maybe I will have people to do things and I can pay people to make things better. But, you know, for now, I'm just winging it. And as I wing it, I get better every time, I think. You know, that's actually been a really good thing about this whole process. I was really embarrassed about mistakes. I have a really hard time with perfectionism. And so every time I made a mistake, it was just this deep wound sometimes because I felt like I was a failure. That's obviously a personal struggle I have with a lot of things. But forcing myself to be out here and to have books that are sometimes not perfect. Okay, not sometimes. All the time. To have books that aren't perfect and to have things on YouTube that aren't perfect and to mess up online. I've messed up so many times now that I'm okay with it. I just learn and go on, and sometimes I don't learn right away, but I do get around to it. This really should probably be a separate thing instead of me just rambling at the end, but I guess I wanted to say thank you for believing in me and putting up with me sometimes, and it just means so much. So I will be back soon. I haven't actually announced this, so if you got to the end of this, you're one of the few people who knows. It is actually every intention of mine to have Wicked Atonement done fairly soon. Honestly, it should be done in about 6 months. I'm perfectly capable of that. But I've been going kind of slow the last couple of years. I'm making some changes right now with the kids with homeschooling and around the house so that I can get some more books pushed through. I would really like to get the 9 done. And now that I'm done with the 5th, I think within a couple of years, I can get done with the rest. I mean, you know how that goes. I give myself a high bar and we'll see how I do. But I hope to have it soon so that I can keep moving on and getting better. So hopefully I'm back reading the first chapter of that one pretty soon. Thanks for your time, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye, guys.